Chapter 5. Every now and then I would remember about the assignment for the year, compliments for classmates, and turn to that page in my notebook. So far I had thought up compliments for 6 people, including Alice. For Alice I put down, important. I'm not sure I'd call that a compliment, my mother said. Alice would, I told her. Actually, Alice would probably consider it just a natural fact, like the earth is round, the sky is blue, Alice Wendelkin is important. Alice being important right away in the first grade because she was the only first grade kid, who had ever been inside the teacher's room. So whenever something had to be delivered there, Alice got to deliver it. I have a note to go to the teacher's room, our teacher would say, way up on the 3rd floor. So Alice, I'll ask you to be my messenger since you know exactly where it is. Then Alice would stand up and straighten her dress and pat her hair and carry the note in both hands out in front of her as if it was news from God. Most of all, she would never tell what was in the room. Whenever the teachers didn't have anything else to do, they went and hid in the teacher's room, but nobody else ever got in there. You couldn't see in, either, because the door was wood and frosted glass almost to the top. Boomer Malone once got Charlie to climb on his shoulders and look in, but all Charlie could see was a sign that said, "Thank God it's Friday," and another sign that said, "Thank God it's June." This got spread around school, and kids went home and told about the swear words in the teacher's room, so after that they put up a curtain, and nobody could see anything. There isn't anything to see, my mother said, just some chairs and tables and a sofa and a big coffee pot and a little refrigerator. No TV? Charlie said. No TV. What do they do in there? Mother sighed. I suppose they relax, she said, and talk to each other, and have lunch. That's not what Imogene Herdman says, Charlie muttered. Well, Mother said, if you believe what Imogene Herdman says, you'll believe anything. They go in there to smoke cigarettes and drink Cokes, was what Imogene had said. And if somebody has a cake, they put it in a Sears Roebuck sack and pretend it's something they bought, and then they go in there and eat it where nobody can see them. And then they don't let anybody in who doesn't know the password. Charlie brightened right up. What's the password? They pick a new one every day, Imogene said, and then they put it in the morning announcements, like in What's for Lunch. Once it was macaroni and cheese. I figured Imogene was making this up as she went along, so you had to be impressed with her imagination. I even got out my notebook and started to write that down. Imogene Herdman has imagination. But then I realized it wasn't imagination, it was just a big lie. I also realized that finding a compliment for Imogene Herdman was probably the hardest thing I'd have to do all year, and I'd better start thinking about it. Of course, Charlie kept waiting for macaroni and cheese to show up in the morning announcements. He was going to walk past the teacher's room and say macaroni and cheese and see what happened. But the next time it was on the lunch menu, Charlie was stuck in the nurse's room with a nosebleed and didn't get to try it. Imogene told him it didn't make any difference because the password that day was softball. Did you try it? Charlie asked. Did you get in? I don't want in. Imogene gave him this dark, squinty-eyed look. If a kid gets in that room, they never let him out. Remember Pauline Ellison? Charlie shook his head. Neither does anyone else. She got in the teacher's room. Remember Kenneth Weaver? Did you see Kenneth Weaver lately? No, 'cause he's got the mumps. That's what you think. Kenneth doesn't have the mumps. Kenneth got caught in the teacher's room. I guess this was too much, even for Charlie. I don't believe you, he said. Imogene grinned her girl Godzilla grin. Neither did Kenneth, she said. I told him he better not go near the teacher's room, but, she shrugged, he did it anyway. For once, nobody believed Imogene. Nobody told her so, but Alice Wendelkin said that from now on, Imogene couldn't shove people around anymore because she was a proven liar, and no matter what she said, everybody would laugh at her and maybe knock her down. Nobody believed that either, but it sounded great. Just wait till Kenneth comes back, everybody said. But Kenneth didn't come back. Charlie hunted me up at recess with this news. He's never coming back, he said. The teacher gathered up his books and moved Bernadette Slocum into his seat and said, Well, we'll certainly miss Kenneth, won't we? It's just like Imogene said. Oh, come on, Charlie, I said. You know they haven't got him shut up in the teacher's room. Still, you had to wonder. First Imogene said Kenneth was gone, and then he was gone. What if Imogene was right? I wasn't the only one who thought about this, and I wasn't the only one who found reasons to stay away from the teacher's room, and even to stay away from the whole third floor. Kids suddenly couldn't climb stairs for one reason or another, and kids got dizzy if they went above the second floor. Alice had what she called a twisted toe and limped around holding onto chairs and tables, all on one floor, naturally. But Luella McCluskey told the real truth for everyone. "I don't think Imogene Herdman is right," she said, "and I don't think kids disappear into the teacher's room. But maybe she is and maybe they do, and I'm not going to take any chances." Then 2 teachers and a district supervisor and Mrs. Wendelkin all got locked in the teacher's room by accident. They were in there for an hour and a half, banging on the door and yelling and even throwing things out the window. They took down the curtain and climbed up on chairs and waved their arms around at the top of the door, but nobody saw them and nobody heard them because nobody ever went near the teacher's room. They were all pretty mad, especially the district supervisor, and Mrs. Wendelkin was hysterical by the time somebody let them out. By that time, too, they were all worn out and hoarse from yelling and dizzy from waving their arms around in the air. Who finally let them out was Imogene. She said that she stood around trying to decide what to do, and that made Mrs. Wendelkin hysterical all over again. "What to do?" she said. "Open the door and let us out is what to do." "But it's the teacher's room," Imogene said, looking shocked, as if she had this rule burned into her brain. "We're not allowed in the teacher's room." "You're allowed to let people out of the teacher's room," Mrs. Wendelkin hollered. Then the district supervisor got mad at Mrs. Wendelkin. "This child has saved the day," she said. "We ought to thank her. And let me tell you, there are plenty of schools in this district where the students spend every waking minute trying to break into the teacher's room or sneak into the teacher's room. You wouldn't believe the wild tales I've heard. Now here's a student who seems to understand that teachers need a little privacy. I hope you have more boys and girls like... Is it Imogene?" "We have 5 more, exactly like her," one of the teachers said. The district supervisor said that was wonderful, and nobody argued with her. Too tired, I guess, from jumping up and down yelling for help. This whole thing got in the newspaper. "School personnel locked in third-floor room," it said. "Released by alert student." It didn't name the alert student, but it named everybody else who was there. "Except Kenneth Weaver," Charlie said. "It doesn't say anything about Kenneth Weaver." "That proves it, Charlie," I said. "He never was in there." "Why in the world would Kenneth Weaver be in the teacher's room?" Mother said. "That whole family moved to Toledo." "Did they take Kenneth?" Charlie asked. "Certainly they took Kenneth. Who would move away and leave their children?" "Mr. Herdman," I said, but Mother said that was different. Alice Wendelkin cut out the newspaper article and gave it to Imogene. "I thought you'd want to keep it," she said, "since it's about you. Of course nobody knows it's about you because they didn't print your name. I wonder why they didn't print your name." "They didn't print Kenneth's name either," Imogene said. "So what?" "So Kenneth wasn't there," Alice said. Imogene stuck her nose right up against Alice's nose, which naturally made Alice nervous and also cross-eyed. "Why do you think I opened the door to that room?" she said. "You think I opened the door to let out those teachers? Who cares if they never got out?" "I let Kenneth out." "My mother was in there," Alice said, "and she didn't see Kenneth. Did you ask her?" "No, because I know Kenneth Weaver is in Toledo." "He is now," Imogene said. This was typical Herdman. Too shifty to figure out, and Alice didn't even try. Aside from congratulating Imogene, the district supervisor said that the worst part of being shut up in there for an hour and a half was the furniture. "Lumpy old furniture," she said. "Broken down chairs, terrible lighting. It doesn't surprise me that the door was broken. Everything in that room is broken." So the teachers got a new sofa and chairs, and the furniture store donated a new rug, and they painted the walls and fixed the door and bought new curtains and a big green plant. They left the door open, too, for a couple of days so everybody could see the new stuff, which just went to prove, Alice said, that there's nobody hidden in there and never was. Imogene shrugged. "Suit yourself." Charlie was feeling brave, too. "Where would they be?" he said. "There's no place for them." "Sure there is." Imogene pointed. "How about that? The plant that ate Chicago." "The plant?" Mother said that evening. "Well, I would have chosen some normal kind of plant, like a fern, but I guess they wanted something scientific for the teacher's room. That plant is a Venus flytrap. It eats flies, swallows them right up." Charlie looked at me, his eyes wide, and I knew what he was thinking. That maybe you could say the password by accident, disappear into the teacher's room, and never be seen again because of death by plant. It eats flies, Charlie, I said. Nothing but flies. Well, after all, it's just a plant, Mother said. It doesn't know flies from hamburger. I guess it eats anything it can get a hold of. Once Charlie spread that word around, you would have normally had kids lining up to feed stuff to the plant. Pizza, potato chips, M&M cookies, and they would probably have had to keep the door locked and put up a big sign that said, "Private, keep out, teachers only." But none of this happened because nobody would go near the teacher's room, not even to watch a plant eat lunch. When the district supervisor came back to see the new furniture, she mentioned this and said that the teachers could thank that thoughtful girl, what was her name? Imogene? For all this peace and privacy. I guess she was right in a way, but I didn't see any teachers rushing to thank Imogene. And never mind how much I needed to find a compliment for her, I certainly couldn't write down Imogene Herdman as thoughtful, no matter what the district supervisor said.